Hello everyone, here is part 2 of our Thomas Wooden Railway 2022 review. So let's get into it. So the first item here that we're going to look at, and it's really two of them, are the crated trucks, or troublesome trucks with crates. Now, this is the second variant of a truck that is available in this line. There's another piece of rolling stock that I believe exists in a set, but other than that, it's really not much else that exists in terms of the troublesome truck variety. And these I much prefer to the paint trucks. In my opinion, crates are a far more common load, especially in the CGI series of Thomas, which these trucks were heavily based off of. And they are stacked tall with crates, much like there was in the show, and it looks really nice. All in all, these trucks have the same issue of the paint trucks, though, being a little bit larger than you'd like, but they are a much more realistic truck that you'd see on Sodor more often, and they blend into trains much more better. As you can see here, though, my crated trucks are actually a little bit interesting, because I believe one of my trucks is a factory error. The magnets are on the wrong sides, so my truck faces away. Ordinarily, this would be a problem for other items, but I kinda like the idea of the trucks facing away from each other, or sometimes at each other, as throughout the show, the truck's faces would appear on either side of the truck, based on the story orientation needed. And I think having trucks face both ways, because I think it's highly unlikely that every single time a train is arranged, that a truck would face only one direction. It just makes more sense that they face both ways. Now, I believe this is a factory error because I've asked around and nobody else has this issue. So, if you guys do have multiples of these crated trucks and they do face different directions, let me know. But all in all, it's a really nice design. I like the color scheme again, just like I did with the troublesome trucks with paint, but I think the load here is a lot better. Moving on, let's talk about Toby. And I have so many mixed opinions on Toby. If you covered Toby and you looked at him from the middle to the top, it may be one of the best designed Tobys ever made in Wooden Railway. He's got excellent decaling and detailing, stuff that the original Wooden Railway line didn't do, outside of the 2013 model, which gave him a funnel. Here you can see his bell on the roof, and you can see many other details. This Toby is well defined with detail. If you look at his bottom half, it is also very nicely designed, even going as far to give him buffer decals in his line. However, when you put the bottom and the top together, it's a little awkward, as Toby's top is very narrow. And I think this is something that the original Wooden Railway line kind of hid a little bit. If you look at most versions of Toby's Wooden Railway model, outside of the 1992 edition, Toby's roof extends to the sides of his cab. And with the width of his side plates and cow catchers, it doesn't make it feel like Toby's actually skinnier in the middle. So Toby has had always a unique eye formation, but it doesn't feel that way because the difference between the width of the cab and the width of the roof and side plates isn't really that wide. But on this model, it is significant because the roof is matched with the cab, not with the cow catchers in front. And I think that's a little bit awkward here, as Toby is very, very skinny. I do like the overall size, as Toby should be a smaller engine, but I think either he should be made a little wider to match his side plates better, or they should have made the side plates a little narrower. Otherwise, it is a really nicely designed model. Moving on to Edward. And Edward is really, really cool. He's got this nice, lanky design, kind of the same way Edward is built in the show. And like James, he was elongated from his previous Wooden Railway version, and he looks really nice. For the first time in this line, Edward has an accurate wheel configuration, as an actual 440. Interestingly enough, Edward sports a shocked face, and I'm not entirely sure why. It wasn't necessarily an expression he made a lot during the series. I think it would have been better if Edward had simply been smiling here, but I'm not going to complain about that too much. As much as I like Edward's design, one thing I did notice is that he has this weird decaling on his cab that doesn't quite accurately match the way his cab is shaped. This is something I have noticed in some of the other models of this line, so I'm going to let it pass, but it is a little bit of an oddity. Other than that, Edward looks really nice, and while James feels a little weird in some sections size-wise, Edward feels about right. And I ultimately really like his design. And I do think it is, in some ways, an upgrade, but we'll get to that later. Here is Rebecca, and she is awesome. She's one of the few characters in this new line that we didn't get a wooden railway version of, but a wood version that was extremely tiny and unfitting of the character. But here she is massive, and she looks really nice. She has a really interesting expression as well. She's not really shocked. It's almost like a look of surprise and mystic wonder in a way. Other details about her: nice wheel configuration. Her tender is a very interesting design, as it's not really something done before in Wooden Railway. But other than that, I don't really have a lot to say on Rebecca. She's just a really cool model. Lastly, we have Emily. And Emily is a very interesting model. And I've looked at people's opinions on Emily. There has been some debate about Emily's body in this line. Some people think it's too boxy and square-like, but if you compare Emily to the other engines of this series, she's a lot boxier than you think. Her curves are really found with her big wheels and wheel arches, and not so much with a boiler. Engines like Gordon and Percy have much more rounded boilers than Emily, so I don't mind the boxier look that Wooden Railway has here. In fact, it kind of fits. The one drawback on her model is her tender. If the coal stretched out a little further, if they did some different things with it, I think it would look a little better. But ultimately, sporting her new number 12, which she does gain in the Big World Big Adventure series, is a cool detail. And she really is a really pretty model. Really well designed. I do wish the tender was a touch better. Before we compare these models one to one, I want to grade out the models we just looked at. So the Crated Trucks, I give a 7 out of 10. Really nicely designed. I like the load here better. I just wish they were a little smaller. Toby, I give a 6 out of 10. He's so close to being an 8 or even a 9, but because of the sizing issues, I really have to take a lot off for the grade here. But his decal and details are exceptional. Edward, I gave an 8. Very nicely designed character. I don't really have a lot to really knock off points for it. It's not necessarily the best model in the range, but he's definitely up there. Emily, I gave an 8.5. I think she's really nicely designed. I just really wish her tender was a little different, as it is a little awkwardly shaped. And Rebecca gets a 9 out of 10. Really nicely designed, exactly what you want in a Wooden Railway Rebecca, and really well executed. So with that out of the way, let's get into which is better. First off, we have A Day Out with Thomas. Now, I don't have any wood versions to compare them to, in terms of Thomas himself, but I do have the Learning Curve Day Out with Thomas. And I would say between the two, I would give it to the Learning Curve version. I think the Learning Curve Thomas is a little simpler. This Thomas here is a little more outrageous. It's a little more colorful. It is creative, but it's a little too much in comparison to the original. Still a nice model, but sometimes the colors and the confetti and everything, it's a little too much pop, if you understand what I'm saying. Next is Toby. Between the two, I would say I slightly prefer the Mattel Toby over the new Toby. The new Toby, or 2022 Toby I should say, would win if it was sized a little better. But the 2013 Toby feels closer to Toby's boxier shape. It doesn't give me weird sizing vibes. Now we'll go to Edward. And Edward is the first new model that I would say I would like over the Mattel one. It's got a better wheel configuration, Edward sizes up nicely with the rest of the cast, and overall, he's just a much better model. Here's Emily. Now, I would give this one to the new version as well, 2022 Emily. She looks fantastic, and she has a lot of detailing that her previous version doesn't have. And as a whole, I think she's just a really nicely designed model. Henry, I'm also going to give to the 2022 version. He is spectacular. The size and strength of this Henry compared to the traditional Wooden Railway one, which actually was my favorite, the 2013 Wooden Railway Henry. The fact that this Henry, in my opinion, managed to trump the one that I thought was the best just gives this new line so much praise and credit, and I'm really excited to own both versions of Henry here. Kevin, I give to Mattel. I think overall, it's the best designed Wooden Railway Kevin. Kevin's never really looked that great in Wooden Railway. The 2013 model I think is about as close as you're gonna get, but the 2022 model just completely misses the mark. Now for this segment, because I don't own any Thomas Wood models, I'm just going to talk briefly about Nia, Rebecca, and Kenji, because all of them only exist in Thomas Wood and Thomas Wooden Railway 2022. And it's not even a contest. By far, Thomas Wooden Railway 2022 wins this round. The sizing, the proportions, everything is better with these models in comparison to the Wood models. There are new products that have been discussed for the future, but for right now, I'm happy with what I have here. I don't know if I'll do another one of these massive wave reviews again, but at the end of the day, it was fun doing them for now. If there is another wave of stuff that comes out, which rumors say there will be new models coming out next year, I might do it again, but I'd like to hear your thoughts. This is Train King James, signing off, on another Thomas Wooden Railway review.